I'm Tim, welcome to Watch One, and thanks for logging on. Today we are looking at the Jaeger-LeCoultre Master Geographic 38mm and 18 karat rose gold. This second generation Master Geographic can be seen and, if you like, purchased on our website, watchyouwant.com. And if you enjoy these videos, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Watch You Want Inc. You can see on my wrist, 6 1/3 inches, 16 centimeters in circumference, this 38mm, 10.2mm thick formal watch has perfect proportions. The size is sufficient that it doesn't look awkwardly vintage. The details with the tapered Calatrava style lugs are absolutely perfect. The proportions are timeless. The watch is a great fit on a smaller wrist, but with these deep, thick, and powerful lugs, the watch can wear well on a larger wrist as well. Yellow gold, rose gold, very powerful materials. Whenever you have colored gold, a watch is going to wear, in terms of visual signature, larger than it is, and that's definitely the case here. Now, 10.2mm thick, it's not going to have any trouble clearing a tight sleeve or a dress cuff. You can see the Geographic adjuster crown at 10 o'clock is a little bit off center, so that means that the first item the sleeve comes in contact with is going to be the flank of the case and the conical bezel, so it's going to ride right up and over. This is an easy watch to wear with formal attire, but it's got enough complication, it's got enough visual presence and strength to wear well with short sleeves as well. It's got a little bit of sports watch to it, less awkwardly, almost anachronistically formal than the fluted lug, fluted bezel first generation Master Geographic. This 1996 to roughly mid-2000s second generation hit the sweet spot for details, proportions, and overall design excellence. Now the case is a big part of that. This particular generation of JLC Master case designs had very heavy lugs, so in any given size it looks larger. It was used on everything from the Master Geographic in 38mm right up to the Master Minute Repeater at 44. It overwhelms at 44. In 38, again, the sweet spot, just right. Now it does have this stepped separate bezel that adds definition and character to the case flanks, but the highlight here is the dial. The Master Geographic has been a staple of the JLC catalog since the first one debuted in 1989, and the key elements of this one integrate those classical complications, but within a nicely dished and stepped hour track that doubles as a rehaut. You can see the applied rose gold hour indices and the JL signature at 12 o'clock, and it flows down and steps inward to a matte silver dial center that's set apart from almost any other watch on the market by an imaginative combination of complications thoughtfully rendered. Now, each one of these inset cutaway subdials in fact features a step within it, so the multiple steps of the dial give this dial great depth. It's almost like a little amphitheater on your wrist. You can see the power reserve, radial date, and the second reference time zone with inset AM/PM indicator at 9 o'clock. I'm going to get into exactly how this functions differently than a conventional dual time in just a moment, but I want to call attention to some of the details that add a little bit of light-hearted character and liven this otherwise cool silver dial. Those rose gold elements help. Broad Dauphine hands in rose gold help more, and splashes of color, blue on the hands, little splashes of red on the lower end of the power reserve, the GMT on the Geographic subdial, and of course the 31 on the date, the radial date. They add a little bit of personality, a little bit of humor and warmth to a dial that's classically cool in every other respect. Lightly loomed, the hands have it. You can see this watch at night. It's not a pure dress reference in that sense, so the practicality of this watch extends beyond the obvious. Now let's set in motion the caliber 929, which you now know has a hacking feature, and we'll explain how this watch makes the most of these subdials. Let's explain the power reserve first because it's the most intuitive. Now the watch has a 38-hour power reserve, so with 2 time zones, AM/PM indicator, and a date, you're probably not going to want the watch to run down, and the power reserve helps with that. Off-centered in classical high horology pocket watch fashion, it's a nod to the history of the manufacturer. The radial date features a case flank adjuster to set the date, and you can see, quite simple in its own right, 1 through 31, a conventional date wheel, albeit indicated by hand. Here's where it starts to get interesting. At 6 o'clock, there's the second time zone. Now it can be adjusted independently of the time, the local time at center with a second crown position, but when you adjust the time at the third crown position, you adjust the time in sequence. There is a third way to adjust the time, and this time the subdial moves independently but with respect to a reference, because just below the subdial is the index where you set your reference city. Let's say I'm on the prime meridian, London, GMT, and I want to check out the time in, or rather I want to keep in touch with business connections in Karachi. I'm going to jump back, and now I'm in Karachi. The watch does all the math for me, from calculating AM PM on the subdial of the reference time zone to noting my reference city at 6 at the index. I simply move the watch essentially at its reference time zone index point through the 24 primary time zones of the planet, each one represented by a reference city, and the second time zone subdial does the math for me, does the calculations instantly, and even gives me an AM PM indication for good measure. This is a very practical watch, and if you've got the eyes to pull it off, I would go so far as to say this is the ultimate dual-time travel watch, because it is absolutely mindlessly easy to use. And I do want to emphasize that should you want to take the reference time and move it out of sync with both the geographic reference ring and the hands at center, there is an independent crown setting position so that you can change the date, or rather the reference time zone at 6 o'clock. Now the watch uses JLC's caliber 929-3 movement, introduced in its primary form with that 1989 first generation Chron Revi. It's presented in a fashion the first generation owners could only imagine. Certified with the Master 1000 hour timing control, fully cased up for power reserve, water resistance, timing precision, isochronism, magnetism, thermal and shock resistance. You see it under this gorgeous 18 karat gold, half hunter caseback in all of its Valet de Joux glory. Beautiful Côte de Genève, baseplate perlage, subtle anglage on the edges of the bridge, real heat oxidized blued screws, not chemically blued. This is traditional high horology watchmaking at its best. You're looking at the caliber 929-3 based on the JLC 889 movement. You know it from the Royal Oak offshores. This is true high horology. With 36 jewels and 293 pieces, it is nevertheless virtually an ultra-thin complication at less than 5 millimeters in thickness, 4 Hz, a modern 28,800 vibration per hour beat rate. It has hacking seconds, as you saw, for precise synchronization. It is adjusted in 6 positions. Auto-winding bidirectional for smoothness and refinement on the wrist. This is as good as it gets. And you have a bonus. Should you want to personalize the watch, you have this gorgeous caseback to personalize and hide any inscription, family logo, enameled insignia that you might choose. But the beautiful engine-turned caseback interior is a work of art worthy of retention in and of itself. You get the best of both worlds, the value of a solid gold caseback, the beauty and pedigree of the Master Control precious metal medallion, and the ability to view that gorgeous 889 based caliber 929-3 whenever you like. And surprisingly, for a formal watch from the 1990s, it does have 5 ATM water resistance in spite of all these through case fittings. So JLC offers a very nicely rounded package, a beautiful alligator leather and calfskin strap. It also features a substantial single swing arm deployant clasp in matching 18 karat rose gold. The case, the clasp, the movement, the entire design and execution is entirely in-house by JLC. A true manufacturer with great traditions, the Geographic continues to be a staple of the catalog even today in 2015, but few examples of that storied lineage have ever reached the exalted heights of this second generation model. You can see it, and if you like, you can buy the Jaeger-LeCoultre Master Geographic 38mm in 18 karat rose gold on our website, watchyouwant.com.